So I've been really enjoying Epic the Musical by Jorge Riviera-Herrans. For those of you who are not familiar, Epic is a musical adaptation of the Odyssey immediately following the Trojan War and following Odysseus in their trials and tribulations through several different islands where more and more of his men get killed. And I was always a fan of mythology as a kid. I actually have a formative memory of mine, I couldn't have been more than 10, where a teacher's aide sort of taught the class about the Odyssey, the way you teach a child mythology with sort of sweeping hand motions. So I think it's where I got my love for storytelling, and I think that Herrans does the story justice. The music is fantastic, the lyricism is smooth, and they're able to dip into several different genres to describe different characters. For example, Odysseus is followed by the guitar, whether it be an electric guitar for when he must be a warrior, or a nylon guitar when he must be more reserved. Their soliloquies are in nylon guitar. Additionally, one of the most recent concept EPs is Circe, who uses sensuality to draw in her victims, and it is very much in the style of like funk, and I really enjoy that. I think it's very smart musical choices all around. But I think what's curious about it, what's most curious to me about Epic the Musical, is its thesis, right? I went on a massive binge of all of its music, all of its animatics, all of its sort of behind the scenes. What is most interesting to me is in the video where Herrans compares the Odyssey to Epic and talks about the point of Epic, they release a thesis, the thesis of the musical, and say that the arc of Odysseus in the Odyssey, or rather in Epic, is to embrace a certain degree of ruthlessness and the arc and the journey at which he begins to embrace it. I really love the wiki because the wiki says, at the start of Epic, Odysseus reluctantly murders the baby. That's a fantastic start to any story. Imagine starting any story with, our main character reluctantly murders a baby. And it goes from there. There is this guilt that follows Odysseus through the story. He classifies himself as just a man who is unable to make the choice when needed and loses a lot of people because of it. In the newest EP, which released at time of recording 2 days ago, we see the thesis sort of come to light. Odysseus claims that he will become the monster to protect his people, to bring them home, that he's lost too much. And looking back on the people who have inflicted violence on him, the Cyclops, Circe, and especially Poseidon, whose own ideology is ruthlessness, is mercy upon thyself, that to save yourself heartache, you must be complete in your victory and leave no quarter. Odysseus, at the end of this most recent EP, adopts that ideology in favor of one of his now deceased party mates, Polites' greet the world with open arms, greet it with naivety and kindness. And I think this is really, really interesting. I think it's really interesting because the majority of media that we have, the lesson often is that we are too cold-hearted, that there is space for us to have our heart bleed and be rewarded for it, because the value in vulnerability is unity. But Odysseus occupies a completely different world, a world wherein everyone has been taught this: if you don't finish off your enemy, they'll come after you. Odysseus murders the baby because should the baby grow up into a young Trojan prince or even king, surely they will exact revenge or penance. And I think it's a really interesting thesis. It's a really interesting moral to have in this day and age when I think more often than not, we trend toward, ideologically as a group, we trend toward the idea that humans are an inherently social, kind race that are often put up against each other due to larger powers, right? I think the general consensus, the most hopeful general consensus, aside of the social contract, is that humans are inherently altruistic creatures who lift each other out of the muck. Epic seems to be somewhat a cautionary tale of being too kind, of giving yourself too much to other people, without the expectation that you might be taken advantage of or that you might be attacked. When Odysseus meets Polyphemus the Giant in the musical, they attempt to strike a trade, a barter, a barter that was never going to be successful. Polyphemus, the giant, is a bad actor. They never intended to have a conversation or a trade or an exchange with Odysseus. Polyphemus, regardless of the wound that they've received, was always going to kill all of the Grecians, all the Greeks. And same with when Poseidon, in a later EP, makes quarter or makes parlay with Odysseus. Odysseus does apologize, albeit backhandedly, and Odysseus is not sure whether Odysseus is just dumb or if Odysseus really has the capacity to trust people in spite of everything they've been through. And Poseidon's response to that is to crush that trust entirely. Kill all but what? 1/15 of his men in a massive storm. At first, when I received the thesis, when I heard the thesis of Herrans, I thought it was a bit cruel, right? I do think that it's more hopeful to believe in people, trust in people, be the polities in people's lives, and open yourself up to be greeted in kind. But now that I'm talking about this in this 10-minute talk, that I'm like letting these ideas crystallize in my mind, I'm starting to realize that Herrans might have something going. I'm not sure about ruthlessness, but definitely you are going to encounter people in your life who are not playing the same game as you. Right? We like to believe that everyone around us are genuinely kind or nice people who only have different perspectives. But there will be some people who are playing a zero-sum game in the world. And it's not it's not cruel to not play their game. Or rather, if you are forced to play a game with somebody who plays zero-sum, it is not cruel or breaking character. It's not becoming a monster to play the zero-sum game and win occasionally, because people will make arguments with you. And we like to think that everyone can be turned over if just given enough time, enough thought, enough work. But some people, and I guess it sounds a bit nihilistic or a little bit sad, but it's true. Some people get into the fight to fight, not to change their mind, not to have a conversation. A debate is meant to be mutual synthesis, not somebody winning. And some people want to win. And Epic the Musical provides a thesis wherein if somebody is playing this game with you and you're forced to play it, you are not the lesser person for playing it to win. Better yet, if you have the opportunity, don't play it at all. Ding, 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 10 minutes.